everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. Not a new fancy intro this week. I mean, there is nothing going on. Which this is the time where we make our money, because this is the dead period where you figure out news to talk about. Last week it was Johnny Dawkins. We're recording this on Thursday, March 2nd. So I just watched our basketball team blow another game. So that's always a good time. But we got a couple things to talk about, a couple things to discuss. Again, another short episode, guys. I promise once spring kind of gets kicked into action, we'll get back to our regularly hour-long episodes, but not too much going on. Rob, haven't seen you in a little bit. Obviously, it's off-season. So how is the off-season life treating you the last couple weeks?
Well, the off season for this podcast is real life in another segment. So working, more working, all the fun stuff. And there's no UCF athletics to turn to. I mean, baseball's been pretty fun, but UCF men's basketball is a complete joke. So nothing to look forward to there. I think college is kind of done with for the season, at least for UCF's perspective, and turning my attention to spring training for baseball, the rest of hockey, the rest of basketball. At least we got some pro sports, but yeah, UCF athletics is taking a little bit of a dive here the later part of the season. I think a lot of people had much higher expectations. Me and you both, I think, higher expectations for men's basketball. We're talking tourney, March Madness, and that looks like it's probably in the rearview mirror. So a little disappointing, but still reasons to be excited about UCF.
Well, quickly, I actually give your quick thoughts, because I gave my thoughts on if UCF should fire Johnny Dawkins. Give a quick thought. Do you think UCF should fire Johnny Dawkins?
I'm kind of back and forth with it. I've played with both ideas as far as, from a quality standpoint. I think Johnny Dawkins, has always kind of underperformed with this men's basketball program. That being said, I think he's brought them farther than a lot of other guys have. He's obviously a phenomenal recruiter. He's a big reason why you have Taylor Hendricks. He's a big reason why you got CJ Walker and Darius Perry in the past, 4 stars, 5 stars, even if they're transfers and not recruits, he's a big reason why you're getting those guys. And I, would be worried to think what would happen if UCF had a different coach. Are they going to recruit as well as Johnny Dawkins can? But I think you can only play the, great recruiter hand so far before you're like, okay, where's the results out of this program? Because you're producing Taylor Hendricks, who is arguably going to be a top 15 draft pick in this year's draft if he decides to declare, which I think everybody thinks he will. So yeah, he absolutely will. So, you're losing a top 15 quality prospect for the NBA, and you're not doing anything with him. He's having a great season. He's absolutely building his draft stock, but to not make the tourney with a guy like that and really a solid team all around. I know they've had some injuries, but Ithiel Horton's been phenomenal the entire season. They have a lot of good quality on this team, and they've underperformed. And you can't really blame injuries. You have to look at coaching, and I think that's where Johnny Dawkins is really falling short, and that's why he's falling out of love, I think, for a lot of UCF fans. That being said, going into the Big 12, you kind of need him. I don't think appointing a new startup coach, because I don't think UCF men's basketball is going to get some A-list, basketball name. They're just not an elite basketball program. They're not going to have that pull like they do for football. So I think going into the Big 12, I think you kind of need to leave Dawkins in there just because you need to keep recruiting. This team is going to enter as probably one of the worst teams in the Big 12 for basketball. You're entering a juggernaut. So I think keeping Dawkins at least for another year or two heading into the Big 12, just so he can maybe lay some groundwork, maybe get some recruits, maybe get some transfers that, another coach otherwise wouldn't, I think is probably the best plan of action. But I think his time is short. I think his time is short. He's just not getting the results, and I think everybody's growing frustrated with this team.
Yeah, we'll see. I've been seeing a lot of Rick Pitino things online, and to that I say there's a lot of baggage there.
Oh, yeah, there is.
And without getting into too many details, I mean, I get it. Great coach, but I don't know if that's the look UCF wants for their program going into the Big 12, or even when you're in the Big 12. I don't know if that's the look you want for your program. Going from Johnny Dawkins to Rick Pitino would be a complete 360, not even a 180. You're getting a completely different human in that case. So for those fans that tweeted me that and have been commenting Rick Pitino's name, I'd say, coach,
probably not.
Great coach, but do not expect him to be the coach at UCF anytime soon, or really any prominent school for that matter.
Yeah, and does that feel like a Terry Mohajir hire? I don't think it does.
No, that's what I said. Does that feel like a UCF hire? It doesn't. I mean, you look at UCF's hires, look at Terry Mohajir, and then you can kind of make the assumption of, some programs will do that. They only care about one thing. UCF, it's all about how UCF is a brand nationally. And that is sending the wrong message nationally around the country of UCF hiring Rick Pitino. But hell of a coach, but I'd stick with Johnny Dawkins, in my personal opinion. Drop in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with that. But let's talk some baseball. And by baseball, I mean Clemson's head coach being a little sourpuss. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I found it very funny, Rob. And I think it needs a bigger topic in, I guess, sports in general, where I think when you look at the grand scheme, listen, UCF baseball looks like they're a team, but again, we have no idea, since you look at UCF basketball, they looked like a team and now they're 16-13. But UCF baseball looks like they're legit. They go on the road to Clemson, sweep them. And then, listen, Clemson's football stadium is historic. They've got the big hill where the players and coaches run down it. UCF players decided, hey, let's go do that. That's fun, right? You got a couple of football players on the team. Hey, let's do it. Well, Clemson's coach basically called out UCF and said, they're just very cocky and very arrogant, doing the booms and all that. I think you just take, everybody has the same opinion. That's why listen, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. I find it funny that a grown man is upset that a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids are having a good time playing a sport. I think that's kind of funny. And I think the thing I would answer with is stop it then. I mean, you couldn't have beat UCF once. I mean, if you wanted to stop the booms from happening, how about you stop having pitchers that are putting them right down the middle to just hit bombs out of your stadium? I mean, that was it. I mean, the booms wouldn't stop when they played Clemson. So I think we got a team. John Rice is playing decent baseball. I mean, he made some pretty good saves in the outfield against Clemson, where you're like, okay, I mean, that's some pretty good baseball play. I think if I had to guess right now, I think John Rice probably goes and plays in Major League Baseball. I think he looks like a baseball player for sure. But we've got Ben McCabe is outstanding. I mean, they've got a full roster. But I think my biggest thing is, if you're a college coach, especially not even like a college football or college basketball, if you're a college baseball coach and you're complaining about a team celebrating after hitting home runs or scoring, I don't know what's going on in your personal life, or if you have a complex, but I think you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what's so bad in my life that I need to say these things? I know it happened a little however many days ago, but listen, all UCF fans are in agreement, and most fans of college sports. I mean, it was everywhere about UCF running down the hill, but I thought that was absolutely hysterical. And it's good that it wasn't the opposite, where we're getting, killed and our, opponents are running into the bounce house, bouncing on the, the bleachers or something. So I'm glad it was the other way around, but also shame on the coach. I mean, geez, how old are you, and do you have any fun in your personal life? But Rob, kind of what'd you take of, number one, the beatdown that UCF gave to Clemson? They're looking pretty good, but also coaches in general, not, being no fun. I think it's a sport. It should be fun. You should celebrate when you're kicking a team butt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first off, UCF baseball has opened the season great. I mean, they're 7-1. They had, that awful game against FAU. But other than that, they've been firing on all cylinders. They're having fun. And I think that's when baseball, especially collegiate baseball, is fun to watch, is when, the players are having fun. And the whole team is having fun. And I think that's when the fans have the most fun. Baseball is like that, though. I mean, even you don't see it as much in collegiate baseball just because I think everybody knows, they are kids. They're a lot younger than your Major League Baseball players. They're not expected to be as mature, and as cordial to the other team. But no, that's how baseball is. I mean, baseball is probably the most stuck up sport when it comes to, just tradition and there's all these unwritten rules. Oh, don't do this. When it comes to the major leagues, the bat flip, right? Oh, don't bat flip. You're gonna offend the other team. And my response is always the same thing to stuff like that. Celebrations, bat flips. If you don't like it, don't give up the home run. Don't give up 15 runs. Don't give up 14 runs. You don't like the booms? Don't give up the runs. Play better. Play good baseball. Put a starter and a relief pitcher on the mound that's not going to give up a whole bunch of runs. If you don't like it, don't lose. And listen, every other sport has some kind of celebration. Tennis and golf, the personalities can shine here and there. They're kind of considered, the classy sports. People are supposed to behave themselves a little bit more. But when it comes to like the big four, hockey, basketball, football, I know football's supposed to, throw flags on excessive celebrations in the end zone. But listen, you got guys grittying every weekend. You got Mike Gesicki throwing, his awful gritty. You got Mac Jones doing it. You got Justin Jefferson doing it. And
Mac Jones is a great gritty.
He does. He absolutely does. Much better than Mike Gesicki's. But, I think football players are a lot more able to show their personalities. And they don't get flagged for it. Hockey, they're hugging after every goal. They're doing some crazy celebrations. They don't get penalized for it. Basketball, you don't really see a lot of penalties. Guys can throw the ice in their veins stuff. The cooking celebration and stuff like that. But baseball is a lot different. And I don't know. I think it's an old fogey sport. You have a lot of old white dudes that are just really, really stuck up and really just entrenched in this, idea of tradition and unwritten rules. And it's just, you got to let it go, man. I mean, baseball is already a boring sport because you have to sit there for 3 hours and not a lot happens unless runs are being scored. So to have, just guys being celebrating, especially college kids, like, get off their back, dude. Like, you're
that's why
man.
College baseball is like, it's so much more fun because, listen, you might not be getting the best players. Like, when you watch the MLB, right? It's so competitive. Like, it's not shocking if you get a 1-0 MLB score. But I mean, like, UCF baseball, right? Beating Siena the first game 22-5. It's like, that's fun. Like,
yeah.
I mean, 11-1. Like, even though we lost 3-13, like, the big scores, like, you have amateur players. Some of them might not go anywhere after college. But I mean, yeah, you beat Clemson 4-2, 10-7, and 13-6, and then you beat Bethune-Cookman by 9-0. Like, that is fun. College baseball is a fun. College softball, our softball team, we don't talk about them enough. College softball, last season, I got into it so much, and I never had watched a softball game in my life. Now, I'm all in on softball, and I can't explain it. It's so much more fun. So I know a lot of our viewers are mostly, again, football fans, and I know a lot of the extra sports they're not necessarily interested in, but if you're a UCF fan, I highly encourage, especially going to some of these games. Like, baseball and softball games are so fun to go to, so definitely, like, figure out a time. Like, UCF's got some good games coming up. They've got a game tonight at home, Johnny Leona Park, against Georgia Southern. So that's tonight at 6. So they play Saturday and Sunday, the weekend. But they've got a good schedule, man. I mean, a schedule where they're playing Georgia Southern tonight, this weekend. Then they go North Florida at home on Tuesday. And then next weekend, they have a home series against Troy, Friday through Sunday. And then Florida State on Tuesday and Wednesday. They've got some good teams on here. I mean, luckily, they get South Florida at home. I'm just looking at the schedule. Early April, South Florida. But this is a very I mean, they could win a lot of games this season. Our baseball team might be legit, but I don't know. Coaches that are stuck up like that, I mean, clearly you want to keep baseball back in the 1960s where it was just, snaps when somebody does something good. So
Sit in your hands until something happens.
yeah. Yep. And then a home run, just be like, wow, nice. Cool.
Yeah, and look what happens when, like, again, in the MLB, when something like big happens like that, when some controversy happens, like when Max Muncy went yard off of Madison Bumgarner and he rounds the bases and Bumgarner gets pissed off at him and Max Muncy tells him, go get it out of the ocean. What happens? It becomes a meme on Twitter and social media, and it turns into a shirt. The fans love it. It's not the fans. It's these old managers and these old heads that run baseball teams and stuff like that are just like, oh, we need to keep tradition. We need to, we can't get, too overconfident. It's not good for the image. And it's just time to move past that, man. We're in a different era and nobody cares. The fans don't care.
Yep. No, it is what it is. I just thought that was so funny. And I know a lot of our fans did. So definitely had to talk about that. UCF, new running back coach. I mean, again, very small amounts of news, dropped throughout this offseason now. But Tim Harris Jr. was here for 1 year, now is going to Miami to be their running backs coach. A downgraded job, but a loss for UCF for sure. I tweeted about it. I think, a coach like Tim Harris really connected with recruits, first of all, but really the running backs in the room. But I think you find a good replacement, and a replacement that, again, is in Gus's coaching tree, which, again, it's almost like an expectation at this point. Is at least somebody that Gus knows and is familiar with, not going outside of his kind of tree. But you go get a guy that like Kam Martin, who, was under Gus. He was a player at Auburn, was an offensive analyst at UCF, kind of got his coaching start at UCF, went to Incarnate Word with GJ Kinney, and then was going to go to Texas State to be their running back coach. But, we had an opening and he says, yep, I'll go coach with Gus and, coach the running backs, which I think, Rob, in the long run really is a good hire because he's young. He's an up and coming coach. Last 2 years, he's made all of those moves. I mean, he started here in 2021 and he's gone to Incarnate Word, Texas State, and now back here in just 2 years. That's a crazy 2-year coaching journey, especially when you're just starting out. So I think you're finding a coach that most likely will stay, hopefully, for at least a couple years. Helps on the recruiting trail because, again, I really like, the running backs that have played before and can really connect with especially running back recruits. And listen, you've got a lot of great backs on the roster, but we also know some of the backs that are coming up in the next couple of years that are high-profile backs. And I think getting a guy like Kam Martin to come in and connect with those players is really going to help the recruiting aspect that you are losing in Tim Harris Jr., whether you like it or not. Tim Harris Jr. is known by a lot of people in the state. That's why Miami wanted him. Again, I think it's a downgraded job, but at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. And I think UCF fills that need of a running backs coach with a solid one in Kam Martin, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're getting a young, upstart coach that is looking to do big things in his young career. It's a guy Gus obviously trusts, a guy Gus knows very well, coached him, and now is hiring him on to be running backs coach. And let's face it, I mean, right now, running backs coach is probably one of the most, important specialists to this UCF program. We saw last year just how important the run game was for UCF, how heavily we relied on for better or for worse. We were a run first team. And so now running backs coach is a very important, coaching position to have. So I think, regardless of what happens under Darren Hinshaw, I would expect Kam Martin to be a very big fixture on the offense next year. We'll see the strides he takes with some of the running backs that are on the roster. Obviously RJ Harvey is probably going to be the main back. So we'll see what he, how he continues to develop under a guy like Kam Martin. So yeah, I mean, listen, even if Darren Hinshaw changes up the offense a little bit, adds a little bit more downfield plays, a little more throwing action from their quarterback. I think the running back position is absolutely one of the most important positions, not even just on the offense for UCF, but But overall, running back is very, very important to this program.
Good job, Gus, for getting to bring him back. Again, as a UCF fan, don't expect too many outside hires that, I think that's what we've learned to expect. That's what a lot of coaches do, but Gus definitely likes to keep it with people that he's built that relationship with, that he knows, and that he knows is going to come in and do a good job. So, listen, good job replacing Tim Harris. Did it quickly, and that's all you can ask for. Listen, not too much more Pac-12 news. I know we'll talk about it briefly, and I mean brief because I'm just waiting and counting down the hours until the Pac-12 says we're not a thing anymore or some school dips. I am just waiting for that magical day to come true. But there's news every day that comes out that, oh, they're going to Apple. Oh, well, Apple's only offering 18 mil or per school kind of. And then there were some crazy rumors about, I don't even know the streaming service because I've never heard of it or whatever it is, but it was going to go there. Well, then they pulled out. And I mean, a lot of crazy stuff going on. But I think what we're kind of just we're figuring out right now is the Pac-12 ain't going to make any money. And schools, I think, are starting to realize that, Rob. And we're going to find out probably, and I don't know when, but I'm guessing within the next couple months. I don't think these schools are going to get to the summer. And, if they get a deal, I think at the end of the day, I think if they can get to 25 million, I don't think anybody's going to leave. I think they stay because I think they're just like, at the end of the day, if we get to 2030, we're going to leave anyway. So I don't know, but I am certainly hoping. And I know a lot of UCF fans said like they don't want Oregon and Washington because they'll leave in 2030 anyway. And it's like, well, guess what? You can at least solidify. The Big 12 is solidified. But if you can bring in Oregon and Washington and say they do leave to go to the Big 10 in 2030, well, at least your program or your conference is solidified until 2030. It'll be solidified fine after. But if you could bring in those two schools anyway and bring in a couple more after, you're set up. And just remember, whenever the ACC, we all know what's going on with the ACC, how it's kind of looking like some schools want a little bit more money than others. It's going to be that type of system. But once they disband, because the ACC is going to be dead at some point. We're just waiting for the days until that disbands, and that's going to be years. But you might want to go get schools from there. So, I mean, quick thoughts, Rob, but I think we can all agree the Pac-12 is basically on its last breath.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to do everything they can, I think, to try to salvage it. And, when we were talking, a month ago or so, about the Pac-12 initially, where there weren't one at San Diego State, it's kind of on its last legs. And it feels like, sort of a a desperation move and just trying to survive. Like, okay, we don't care what teams we add, we just need to add them because, we're losing so many programs. I think the nail in the coffin for the Pac-12 is if, obviously, like we talked before, if Oregon leaves, if Washington leaves, if Utah leaves, if any of those big programs that are still remaining, because we already know USC and UCLA are on their way out next year or the year after, we know it's on its last legs. Once they lose those programs, which I think a lot of people expect them to lose, probably Oregon, whether to the Big 10 or the Big 12, wherever they decide to go, I think once they lose those teams, that's when it's officially over. And maybe it would be officially over before that, and the teams have to kind of scramble to find a new conference. But I think it's much more likely that the Pac-12 tries to salvage what little of a conference they do have left. And they'll roll with Utah and Oregon as the big dogs. They'll see what they can do. But, I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon and Utah and Washington and even like Washington State are looking to head on out of there and see where they can go from there, because they can do better than the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is easily the worst conference of the Power Five now, and it's only going to get worse once USC and UCLA are officially gone. So it's kind of sad because, I grew up a USC fan. I grew up, watching a lot of Pac-12 football just because I am from Southern California, and, it's sad to see, a conference just dissolve like that. But at the end of the day, every program is going to do what's best for itself. So UCLA and USC, clearly the best move is going to the Big 10, a better conference. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the Pac-12. But yeah, I would definitely agree with you. It's probably on its way out, and it's going to dissolve within, if not, over the next year, and in the next couple of years, it'll probably be dead in the water.
Kill or be killed. That is the college football media rights landscape right now. All right, guys, that's all we have for you. Hopefully next week we get a little bit more information, especially on that, media rights extravaganza that the Pac-12 is doing. A lot more spring ball news coming up. Hopefully some exciting news with this podcast and the future of this podcast moving forward. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited some of the content that we get to bring you that's a little bit different than just this regular old setup we got here. A lot of fun and exciting new things. Next week, not sure when the episode's going to get posted. At earliest, it might go up Thursday. It might go up Friday. We do not know yet. Me and Rob are traveling on Friday. And you won't see Nick for TBD. Nick is going to be gone for some time, I guess. I don't know. He's getting married. So he's definitely not going to be on this pod. He's got a honeymoon after the wedding. So you're at least not going to see him for a couple more weeks. But he's doing good. But we're going to get up an episode next week. We just don't know when. But please subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. It will notify you directly when we post, so you can get all of your UCF news for next week. All right, guys. Thank you so much. As always, we appreciate all the support you guys are giving. And like I said, please subscribe, share, comment, tweet us. Put down in the comment section below. If you don't agree with any of what we've said this episode, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. All right, guys. This has been Charge On from the Believe Network. We will see you next week.